This is the Limitless Leadership Lounge, where Coach and John learn along with you from some of the world's most decorated leaders. Recently promoted, let's sharpen the saw together.
It's the Limitless Leadership Lounge. I am John Goehring, joined as always by Coach Jim Johnson, and we're so excited today to dive into a leadership conversation with a really special leader, an athlete, actually, and we'll get into his story and everything coming up here in just a moment. I do want to remind you, if you're getting value from the programs we're bringing here for you as a young and emerging leader, share this with another leader in your life who could use these conversations that are shedding light on some important leadership concepts. So without further ado, Coach, let's dive into today's conversation with Ruben.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I had the pleasure to talk to this gentleman, Ruben Gonzalez, and Ruben has just a fascinating, amazing story. Ruben is a four-time Olympian. He's the only one that's ever been in four Olympics in four different decades: 88 Calgary, 92 Albertville, 2002 Salt Lake, and 2010 Vancouver. And he, I think, is trying to qualify for one more. We'll see what happens. Ruben now is a speaker and author. He spoke to over 100 Fortune 500 companies. He has a numerous amount of books. And he, in fact, one book that I had the pleasure to read is called The Shortcut, about goal setting, and is really well done. Ruben gives funny, high-energy keynotes about the courage to think big, take action, and produce great results. We're really looking forward to delving in deeply with Ruben Gonzalez. So welcome to the Limitless Leadership Lounge.
I'm excited to be here. I read your book, and boy, I think you might have seen a spike in sales because I've been telling everybody about your book.
Thank you, Ruben. I'm very grateful, and it's great to have you on. We take different journeys, but because yours is so fascinating, I do know a decent amount about your story and reading your book and listening to various interviews. Tell us a little bit about your journey being a four-time Olympian in a sport that a lot of people aren't familiar with, but it is a very challenging sport. So I'm very curious. Tell us a little bit about growing up and what spurred this Olympic dream, and then tell us about your events and a little bit more.
Sounds good. I was born in Argentina. My dad was a chemical engineer with Exxon, so I was born in a little refinery town. And when I was 6, back in 1968, things were getting bad over there. Hyperinflation and terrorism. It just became a bad place to raise a family. And my dad, even though he didn't speak much English, he figured out a way to get them to transfer him to the U.S. And so we were in Queens, New York for 2 years, then Houston and Venezuela, oil brad, just hitting all the. And I live in Colorado now. I couldn't stand the heat in Houston. I spent 30 years there. And so when I was 10, I saw the Olympics on TV for the first time. And I learned to speak English because I speak Spanish. That's my first language. I used to love to read, I still do, adventure books. And so I had all these adventure books in Spanish. My parents bought them in English. They brought in a tutor. That's how I learned. And that led to reading biographies, which I love. And so I was always looking for my dream, my goal. And when I started reading biographies, I realized that all these people that are successful in all different types of things, they all had something in common. They were perseverant. They refused to quit. They were just a bunch of hardheads. And my mom, she always called me a hardhead. So that gave me a little hope. I thought maybe I have a little what it takes. And started reading the biographies when I was 10. By 12, I just decided from today on, Ruben doesn't quit anything. By high school, my nickname was Bulldog because kids started noticing that I'm tenacious. That's my superpower. And I had the Olympic dream from seeing it for the first time on TV back in, it was the Sapporo Games from 1972. And I was hooked. But I'm not a great athlete, okay? I was always the last kid picked for PE because I was a slowpoke and a lot of heart, but no body, just like Rudy. And I didn't do anything for a while. And then my dad got me into the biographies and hanging around winners. And I didn't realize it, but over a period of several years, I was growing from the inside out and starting to become more confident and take more chances. And when I was 21, I'm a bench warmer in my college soccer team. I played 5 minutes a game. Coach said, you only get to play if we're winning by 2 goals because you're a threat to our own team. That's what he said, okay? Yeah, I know, man. He's a real motivator. At that point, the Sarajevo games roll around, 84 Olympics. And I see Scott Hamilton, the figure skater, win the gold medal. And everything changed in my mind because I thought before you had to be like Arnold Schwarzenegger to be an Olympic medalist. And here, Scott Hamilton, 110 pounds soaking wet and 5'2" or something. He gave me hope. I thought if that little guy can win, I can at least play. I'll be in the next ones. I just got to find a sport. And I was 21, bench warmer all my life, but I believed for the first time. And I went to the library, got a big book about the Olympics, started looking first at the summer. And it took me 5 minutes to realize, forget it. You got to be Superman to do any of these things. There's no way, because it's all power and speed in the summer. And then I started looking at the winter, and I thought, wait, I'm about to put together a plan for the next 4 years. I should base the plan on my strengths. My strength's not athleticism. It's perseverance. I'm bulldog. So I need to find a sport that's so tough, a sport that's got so many broken bones in it, there'll be lots of quitters, right? Only I won't quit. That's where my strength will stand out. And so, guys, if you're listening to this, guys and gals, pay attention to what people compliment you on all the time, because that's your superpower. They wouldn't compliment you on it if it didn't stand out. If it stands out, they compliment you. And just say thank you, and that's it, and write it down. And then use that power. You grab the dream with one hand, you work your way up using your strength. And so it was going to be ski jump, bobsled, or luge. I thought those were the tough ones. I never skied before, so forget ski jump. That would have been suicide. Bobsled, where you're going to find 3 other nuts in Houston when we do the bobsled. So I left the luge, and I hadn't seen it on TV. If I'd have seen it, I was just watching it before we started recording. The ladies are racing at the Olympics right now. And if I'd have seen it on TV, I wouldn't have done it. I'm not that great. I had a little picture of a guy on a luge, just like the one on that cover. And I thought, okay, that's the one for me. That looks tough. I wrote Sports Illustrated a letter. I asked them, where do you go learn how to luge? And they said Lake Placid, New York. And so I called them up. And at first they wouldn't take me. I'm 21. They're laughing. They're saying, forget it, man. You should have 10 years experience. There's no way. I wouldn't hang up. If you hang up, it's all over. So I just kept talking. Finally, I got to go. And they had to compress. It takes 10 years to learn this sport. They started the kids when they were really little, and they slowly work them up the track. And they're going from a junior start till they turn 19. So it's a gradual rise. And because if you hurt them, or if they don't like it because they're too scared, they're going to quit on you. So it needs to be gradual. They crammed those 10 years into just 2 years. They said, you're going to get hurt a lot, okay? But we need to do that because the next 2 years, you need to be going to races all over the world to try to accumulate points, which gives you a World Cup standing, and top 50 get to go, 51 watches it on TV. I used to work. Now it's top 25. It gets harder and harder. Anyway, so I got to play with the big boys 4 times by the skin on my teeth, but it's great. I'm watching now, they're all coaches. One of the guys that I used to race against back in the early days, yesterday he had one of his sons was competing in the men's, and I just saw his daughter competing in the ladies.
But you started when you were 21. That's ridiculous how late, like most of these athletes are starting when they're like 3. So tell us, how were you able to achieve the success you did, end up in 4 Olympics in 4 different decades so far, and all do that without being brought up in the game?
I don't know how I did it. I don't know, just kidding. I always had the desire, okay? You have to have 2 types of courage to make your dream come true, no matter what it is, okay? Build a business, lose 50 pounds, pay off your credit cards, whatever, okay? Fill in the blank. You got to have the courage to get started, and everything's hard in the beginning because you don't have any skills. And so you have to have the courage to endure, to stay in the game long enough to learn those skills, right? When you're taking all your licks. And then you use the skills to make the dream come true. And you have to be coachable, right? You got to be following coach and learning and not be a hardhead like I was for the longest time. And the courage to get started comes from believing it's possible. You believe something's possible. Hey, piece of cake, I can do that. The courage to not quit, that comes from desire. You want something badly enough, ain't nothing going to make you quit, right? Your house is burning down. You're not going to go in there to save your big screen TV, but if your babies are in there, you'll run through walls to save your babies. So what changed? The desire makes you, right? So I always had the desire, but I didn't have the belief. When I see Scott Hamilton, now I got the belief. I'm ready to take action. And I knew it was scary that I was so sure. I knew that I'm in the Olympics in 4 years. I didn't know what sport yet. All these Germans are already good at my sport. I didn't know what it is. That's a bad situation for an athlete. But I believed. That's the short answer. And so, and we'll talk about this, but it behooves you to find the person who's already done what you want to do. And successful people, they like to talk about success. So you take them out to Starbucks, and successful people, they're only impressed by action, though. Okay. You want to impress your coach, it's action. He says, do 50 push-ups, you do 100. That's what impresses them. And don't be the eternal learner, but follow the coach and follow in their footsteps. My dad used to say, if you have to cross a minefield, it makes sense to follow somebody that already crossed it, preferably somebody still walking, right? So your coach has to have fruit on the trees, right? They have done it. They're not a theorist. And so that's what I've always done. And it speeds up the learning process and at first, maybe you don't believe in yourself very much, which is normal. But if they believe in you, you run on their belief till your belief kicks in. But so when I first started speaking professionally, it was in 2002. I went looking. I have to find I can tell stories, but I don't know anything about how to build a business. And so I found a guy in Houston. He was a successful speaker. He had fruit on the trees. And so he met with me. And the first thing out of his mouth was, I don't care if you're a 10-time Olympian, unless you write a book, no one's going to take you seriously because the author is considered the authority of a subject. He wrote the book on it. He kept going on and on. I was broke. I thought this guy must have his publishing company, but he's not going to get any of my money because I don't have any. But I told him, I can't write a book. I made C's in English. My parents celebrated or brought a C in anything. And he said, you got a great story. You write it down simple, like you're writing a letter to your best friend. Don't try to get fancy. And then we're going to give it to some A students. They clean it up for you. That's just grammar. And I thought, oh my gosh, I didn't think about that. He goes, yeah, it's called editing. All right. So shut up and sit down. And so that's how I learned. So I had this ironclad case, right? A beautiful, logical case why I couldn't be an author. And he says, no, just do this and this. Because they've been through the minefields, they can take you through. They can help you through. So you gotta find your coach.
You talked about coaching. Obviously, I believe leaders that are effective are good coaches. And obviously, I was a coach for a long time. I'm curious from your thoughts, because you've had coaches in various, not only in the luge, but in other parts of your life. To you, what makes a great coach?
Great question. My first coach, he was a very happy, he's from Ukraine, Dmitry, okay? And he was just super happy guy. He was like the youth leader in a church. He's all bubbly. And he was the coach of the junior national team. And he had to keep them interested and fun. And that's where they dumped me, even though I was 21, they put me in there to learn with them. And he got me to the first Olympics, Dmitry did. Then the International Luge Federation, they created a coaching program for the smaller countries. I slide for Argentina. And it was a 3-time world champion who'd been in 4 Olympics. And this guy it was like Michael Jordan teaching you or LeBron James. And he knew the sport, but he didn't know how to teach it. Okay. It's like when they promote the top salesman to be sales manager. That's a different skill set. Okay. Yeah. And so he never talked about the mental side. And this is a very mental sport. Okay. And so I struggled, but went with him for the next 2 Olympics. And then I met another coach. His name's Jonathan Edwards. He competed for the U.S. He got 4th place in doubles in Lillehammer. And he knows the technical side, but he also knows the mental side. And so he can spot it. When I have a block, he can spot it and figure out how to make it, how to get through it. And so when I started training for my 4th Olympics, so I did Calgary and Albertville back to back, 8 years in a row. Then I quit. Okay. I want to do other things. I didn't slide for about 7 years. Then coach, the big Austrian guy, he starts calling me, trying to convince me to start training for Salt Lake. And I started training and I made that one. And my brother too, I got him in the sport. And we started training 5 years before. And first 2 brothers compete against each other in the Winter Olympics in the luge. And then I quit again, started my business, writing books and speaking. And that kept me busy for about 6 years. And then business started getting good and I got bored. I needed a challenge, started training again. And then Jonathan, who's this Jonathan Edwards, he says, Ruben, I can't believe you're still scared when you're sliding. You've been doing this for almost 30 years now. What's going on in your head when you're sliding? I said, man, I see those walls going faster and faster. I get tighter and tighter. And by the bottom of the track, I can't believe I can even steer because I'm stiff like a board. And he said, no, the sport of luge is not about speed. They can clock you at the fastest speed, but if you crash at the bottom, you lose the race. The luge is about who has the best time. Okay, it's the only sport track to the time to the 1/1000th of a second. That's how important the time is. So he said, Stop focusing on those walls. Pretend you have a blinders like a horse, and you focus on a spot in front, 30 feet in front of you, and your thinking needs to be, what do I need to do in every section or every curve to ensure I have the best time? If you change the focus, the fear will disappear. Okay, and I trust them. That night, I did about 100 mind runs, visualization runs with blinders on. The next day, I go to the track, fear disappeared. Okay, it didn't reduce in intensity, it disappeared. Okay, and so changing the focus changed the experience. And so I tell salespeople when I speak to them or any group, don't focus on the economy. Don't focus on your competition. No, just focus on what you need to do in the next 10 minutes. What's the most important thing you could be doing in the next 10 minutes to move your business forward? Okay, who do I need to call? Who do I need to write? Whatever. And it's the same thing. And if you just focus on that, you'll get through. The economy is the same for everybody, but you'll be doing the right thing and you'll leave them in the dust.
Wow, that's so good. And one other thing that you mentioned briefly, but I got to dive in deeper, Ruben, is you talked about visualization. You said you visualized like 100 times. Okay,
Yeah.
people don't often do this. The highest achievers talk about visualization all the time, but then so many other people go, that's weird. Why would I close my eyes and think about it? Tell us what visualization actually is and why it's so effective.
Sure. So luge, we only get about 5 or 6 runs a day. Okay, maybe 3 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon. And the G forces and the cold and the stress from the speed, you do more than 6. The next day, you miss practice, you feel like you have the flu because everything's hurting. How are you going to get good on 5 minutes a day, right, of actual sliding? And so you have to be doing runs, mind runs, we call them, right? And people start asking, should it be in color? Should it be slow motion? Should it be third person, like a camera, like TV, or head cam, or the drone cam? Which one? And I said, no, it has to be like what you're seeing, right? So I'm seeing the track in front of me. And you want to capture the feeling, okay? It's more about the feeling than what you're seeing. And so when you see luge guys and gals like 10 minutes before a luge run, they start doing their runs. And we're getting our whole body into it like this, right? And every motion is like an exaggerated motion of what we would be doing on the sled. So we're capturing the feeling. Now, before a practice run so I wish they called it feelerization, to tell you the truth, okay? Because it's the feeling that you're trying to capture. It's like the little kid that, every little kid, 3, 2, 1, he shoots, he scores, that's visualization, baby. That kid's he's in championship state of mind right now. And so that's what it is. And so we do a lot of them. Before an actual training run or a race run, we're visualizing the perfect run. We want to get the mind into that groove. But when we're in the hotel, we also visualize escape routes, contingency plans. What am I going to do if I'm late into curve 1? What am I going to do if I'm early? How am I going to fix it? What if I hit the left wall before I run? What if I hit the right wall? And you do that for every section of the track. And that gives you confidence because now you know that whatever happens, you can fix it. Okay. And so confidence doesn't come from faking it till you make it. It comes from practicing the reps, right? And so we get those reps in there too. But obviously you don't do the escape route visualization right before you can take your run. You don't be thinking about that, right? Hitting walls and everything. That'll mess you up. But you got to do it. And it helps. And when it's funny, I don't know if it's from a luge or just the way I'm wired, but whenever I park the car anywhere, I walk out and then automatically I look, right? And then 50 yards, if I had to park way out there or if I'm in a stadium, I'll look again. It's like I'm trying to get pictures in my mind of what it's going to look like when I come back. And one time I was in the car together with a guy who was like a Green Beret, right? And he says, wow, you do the same thing we do. When we're out in a strange place, we're trying to build a library so we can get back, so we don't get lost. And he goes, yeah, it's visualizing it.
It's interesting. I'm a big believer in visualization, and I think it really gave an edge to our program. And we started doing visualization before every game, the day before. And the interesting part is when I retired, I asked all my players, my assistant who was taking over, he asked if they should keep visualization. And Ruben, every single player said that it was well worth it. So that's the power of it for sure. So I appreciate you sharing the insights, and getting that feel is something special. Like I know when we were talking about building a championship, we would talk about what does it feel to win that championship.
Yeah.
That's a great.
You got to get the emotions in there. Coach is always telling us, because it's tough, okay? Especially you get hurt. coach is always painting a picture of how great it's going to be when with the opening ceremonies in the March.
Yeah.
And so the ringtone on my phone is the bell that you hear up at the men's start. It's the same bell sound everywhere. And when that goes on, there's a little red and green light there. It goes from red to green, right? And it starts counting down. And you got 20 seconds to cross the start line, or else you're disqualified, okay? If you can't be on time, forget trying to be in the Olympics. But I got that every time somebody calls me, I hear it and it puts me there. Even the robocalls, right? They all those scammers, man, they're helping me go to the Olympics because they put me back. When my kids text me, and I got my phone set up where only my kids, when I'll hear something. If anybody else texts me, I don't need the interruption. But when they text me, it's the sound I just recorded a luge going by the Calgary track a few years ago. So it's, yeah, I'm all day long. I'm looking. I'm about to move later this year closer to Utah. No, it'll be in Utah, closer to the track and Park City. And it's a little town called Midway. And so I got a picture of Midway, and it says Midway, Utah right here. So I'm seeing it all the time. And I got the map there, and I'll talk about it. You want to become known for your goal. When people start asking you, hey, how's that, whatever it is, coming? When you become known for the goal, then that means you're starting to focus. And then the naysayers, the ones that don't believe in any of this stuff that we talk about, they'll start calling you lucky, right? If you make it. But first they laugh at you, then they make fun of you. Then a few years, I believe them. I knew he could do it. I was just kidding.
Hey, Ruben, I had the pleasure to read your book, The Shortcut, and I'm showing it to our YouTube audience. But I know you have a neat story, and you talk about you read a lot of biographies and surrounding yourself with it. And the person that wrote the foreword of this book, Jack Canfield, is very famous. We actually had his partner on, Mark Victor Hansen, but they, created the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. Can you tell us a story of how you connected with Jack? I think that's pretty cool, and because people don't realize that you can reach out to these people, and if you find the right methods, you can talk to them.
Oh, yeah, especially with Zoom, man, piece of cake. Even if they live in Beijing, when they speak the same language, you're good. So when I meet this guy, the speaker, at the coffee shop, and he tells me I got to write a book. And before he even agreed to meet with him even one time, he made me run through all these hoops. It took me like 2 months to do everything I had to do, I had to qualify. And then we sit down. Actually, he said, bring a pad of paper with questions, okay? And that'll get us started. And so we sit down, and the first thing out of his mouth is, number one, he said, about the book, right? But he also said, at the end of every time, we're going to meet once a month. You take me out to coffee, and you got me for an hour. At the end of every meeting, I'm going to give you some homework. If we ever meet and you haven't done last month's homework, it's over, okay? Because it's the action thing. And yeah, my first homework was write a book. This guy was no easy guy. He told me, okay, go to Barnes and Nobles and look at the books, okay? And look how they're laid out. And notice how they have all these people that write nice things about you, right? And so you got to get testimonials. So I made a list. I've got 3 bookcases filled with mostly personal development stuff. So I went through the whole thing, and I made a list of 100 people, my favorites, my dream list, right? Who I would want to endorse my book. And then I went to all their websites. This is almost 25 years ago. And I started calling them all, right? And after a while, I realized you always get the secretary. You never get the guy. And so I changed my pitch a little bit, right? And then I would follow up with emails. And out of the 200, I got about 20. And a couple of months after all this started, Mark Victor Hansen came to Houston, and I was speaking everywhere for free, just trying to learn. So I was at a Rotary Club meeting or something, and one of the leaders says, hey, I got 2 tickets to the CBS News studio. Mark Victor Hansen's going to be there to speak. And my arm just shot up, right? I was probably the only one in that room that knew who he was. And so I went. And now something that I'd read from their books, and it might have been the Aladdin Factor, or it was one of their early books. They used to teach, make a list of 100 people you want to meet and 100 things you want to do in your lifetime. And every time you accomplish one, you just make a big red circle on it and write victory with an exclamation, because that fuels you. It's a small win. And so I remembered that. And so I made a list I already had a list, but I took the list and I put him like in the top 5, right? And I had a big picture of me on the luge. And at the end of the show, I went up to him and was, hey, I'm one of the guys that listened, okay? And see, I finally got to meet you. So that's why it's red. So I had him, right? And so he gave me one. And then when I called Chicken Soup for the Soul, the assistant, I said, hey, this is what I want to do. I'm looking with Jack Canfield, have any interest in writing a testimonial or something for me. And he goes, he's right here. And she hands him the phone. She probably doesn't work for him anymore. But he goes real serious. He goes, you got 5 minutes. You can tell he was mad. We talked for an hour and a half.
Wow.
During that time, we became friends, kind of like this, right? During that time, he was writing The Success Principles. That's the book he's really known for. And it's like a reference book of success. It's really good. He says, hey, I'm writing this book. I'd like to put you in it. He put me in there 3 times, okay? I got 3 different chapters in there as an illustration. And that got me gigs, okay? Then when I needed a testimonial, I write them up and, hey, can we do this again? I got Lou Holtz one time, 15 years ago. I was speaking for some big company. It was like a couple of thousand people in the audience. And the night before, I'm having dinner with their VPs. And I asked them, how'd you guys hear about me? Oh, it's Walter's Kluwer. That's what it was, Walter's Kluwer. And how'd you guys hear about me? Oh, we had Lou Holtz last year, and he said that we need to have you next. I didn't know him, okay? So he's recommending me. I didn't know the guy. And so I sent him a case of wine, and then I asked him too, right? Because Lou Holtz, more people knew who Lou Holtz is than Zig Ziglar. You got to be in sales to know who Zig is. I just started. It's like you got to kiss a lot of frogs. You got to call a lot of people to get your 20. But then you got them, baby. It's credibility.
It starts with that mindset that you're worthy of that kind of conversation, right? And that comes through the confidence. You talk about confidence a lot too, building confidence, like keeping those promises that you make and keep to yourself, right? And so you've been being in the Olympics and having the longevity that you've been able to have. How much of that comes from confidence, and how much of that comes from different sources of your success?
Aristotle said, you become what you repeatedly do. And so confidence is a muscle. And the next time you go out, you ever notice if you go out with your friends to a restaurant, nobody wants to order first, right? It's I don't want to order something stupid. How can you order something stupid? But that's the mindset, right? Nobody wants to go first. And so next time you're going to go with your friends to eat out, that's your mission, okay? You're going to order first. It doesn't matter if you didn't like it. You're just going to go online, check out the menu, and you got a plan, all right? And now you order. Let's say you order the chicken fried steak. Man, half the people are going to order chicken fried steak because now it's safe. It's considered safe now. Guess what happened? You faced your fear and you won. So now the score is Ruben 1, fear 0. And every time you fear something, you got to force yourself. And it might be just meeting this person, walking up to a person and starting a conversation. That's really hard for me to do. So I got to force myself to do it. But I do it because if you hesitate, the fear gets bigger. Fear gets bigger. But when you actually do it, 9 times out of 10, you realize, hey, that was a piece of cake. I'm not scared of that. Yeah, you just grew, baby, because that's one less fear on your list. And so you just keep doing it the rest of your life. And so you become more and more bold, and you read those personal development books, and you listen to people like you guys who have been through it and you understand, and you're getting a little tiny bit better every single day. And then over a bunch of years, it's a big difference.
Man, facing fear is so powerful too, because you mentioned the danger of the sport and how much fear you must have faced every single day and continue to, right, as you train.
I white knuckled it for 25 years. The handles on the luge sled, they're just a couple of pieces of rebar, the really thick iron that they put in roads. They're a couple of pieces of rebar like in a C, and your hands go in there, right? A couple of times, the first year when I was learning, I got to the bottom of the track and I bent the rebar from fear. I'm not that strong. That's like a granny picking up the car to save the baby, right? That's all adrenaline. But that's how scared I was. But I just kept at it because I knew I'd rather be playing soccer or ping pong, but I'm not nearly good enough for those. So I got to stick with this vehicle. This is the vehicle. I hated the luge for the longest time. But I realized this is the only vehicle that's going to get me to my destination. And so I just kept thinking about the destination, how great it's going to be when I'm finally there.
Ruben, I'm going to put you as the teacher now, okay? And because you're a big goal setter, but you're helping a young leader. Help them on being a more effective goal setter. What would you share with them?
You got to break it down. You got to make it as simple as possible. Simple, KISS method, everything, okay? I can't stand it when I'm speaking somewhere and the guy before me, he's got like 100 slides and they're all like written in tiny font and he's complicating everything to make himself look smart, right? That's dumb. Einstein said the simple solution, that's the elegant solution. That shows that you're smart if you can simplify a complex thing. Let's say their goal is to climb the 7 summits, okay? The tallest mountain in each of the 7 continents. Okay, so we're going to break it down. Let's go for Kilimanjaro first. That's a walk up. It's not technical. And so you're going to have to get in shape, okay? And so every day you got to do this and this to be in shape, cardio especially. And you have to learn a little bit of techniques. But here, since you live in the Rockies, here's some good mountains for you to practice on. Pikes Peak is perfect because it's a walk up as well. And that's okay. So you go and boom, you do Kilimanjaro. Then the next one. Okay, now it's a different game plan for the next one. Mount Elbrus. That's the highest one in Europe. And then Vincent in Antarctica. You got a different plan because every single one is like a different luge track, right? You got to have a different plan for it. And you break it down and you tackle them one at a time. And you don't think about Everest. Don't even think about Everest. By the time you got 6 under your belt, you're going to be ready for Everest. You're going to be chomping at the bit because your confidence will have grown from the easiest one. It's kind of like Dave Ramsey, you know, how he says, you got 5 credit cards, don't pay the one, pay the one that's got the least dollars on it, okay? Because you need a victory. You need a victory. Pay that one that's got like $300 on it. Don't try to tackle the one that's got $30,000. That's too hard. That's Mount Everest, right? Once you pay that one, now you got a little extra money. So you can take that extra money and you're going to put it into the second one. And so you're same thing. You're working up. You're getting stronger and stronger. You're not trying to pick up the super heavyweight when it's going to hurt you.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of personal development, like Ed Milet, for example, talks a lot about stacking wins, right? That's such an important concept too. And that's exactly what you're saying here. Ruben, speaking of some of the big names in personal development, I'm so curious because you mentioned that there's so many books on your shelf and so many people that you reached out to. You have 2 or 3 go-tos as far as books, podcasts to help us grow?
Yeah, podcast. My favorite podcast is called Founders. Okay, founder with an S. So founderspodcast.com. It's this guy that reads a biography of a famous, it might be Michael Dell or all these people that built great big companies. So every week he reads the biography and then he unpacks it at his show. And he's passionate, okay, about business and about learning from all the people that came. So they're fun. And one thing about biographies is when you start reading biographies, you realize that nobody started successful. Everybody started normal and ordinary with no skills. But by doing this and this, they started growing as a person. You grow the person, can grow the business or create something big. It's, hey, you don't have a biography yet because you're at the beginning, okay? But don't worry about it. And you also see that they all struggled. They all had to overcome. And so it reminds you that, hey, I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one that's, I'm just like Mandela, only I don't have to go to jail for 27 years. And so everybody had to, so it's going to be tough, but if it's in your heart, you got what it takes, right? So it's going to take everything you got, but if it's in your heart, you got what it takes. So just find that mentor and they'll show you the way, right? Yeah. Success is simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. You got to follow success principles.
Yeah. How about you mentioned a podcast you like? Any books that you would recommend?
Oh, book. Yeah. Thanks for reeling me back in. So Founders is great. He's already done over 350 books. Okay. So you go to there and you just pick your favorite people. And books, I really like everything by Brian Tracy, anything that Brian Tracy wrote. And I'm just hooked. I hear that there's a new Brian Tracy book. I've known for the last 5 that I've bought. I know it's always the same information in a different order, but I can't help myself because I like the way he teaches. It's so organized. And so I love that. I love watching motivational movies, inspirational, like Miracle and Rudy and Rocky, because again, it fills you up, right? It fills your spirit for the fight ahead. So it's a combination of all of that.
Hey, Ruben, so my final question, I know John will wrap it up. I'm sure he'll have another question and then reaching out for your contact for people in our audience. But how about for the young leader that's just starting out, taking over a team, he or she, what advice would you give him or her 2 or 3 things to make sure they get off to a good start as a leader of a team?
We got to care. They will follow you if they don't believe in you, if they don't trust you. And so you have to be the one, you have to set the pace, right? You have to be the one that they got to see that you're doing it, that you're walking the walk. Otherwise, it's just like a parent. If he's not doing what he's telling his kids to do, they're not going to do it. All right. So
True.
you have to walk the walk. You have to fill them with belief. Okay. Because they don't believe in themselves enough yet. And you got to tell them, I believe in you. I can do it. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. Look, why don't you read this book? Oh, listen to this podcast. Check this out. And if you're in that guy's team or that gal's team, and let's say you've been on that team for a couple of years and you want to get a promotion, right? The best way to get a promotion is you go up to your boss and you ask him, hey, I would love to get a promotion. Is it possible? Could I learn? Are there things that I could learn and do that would qualify me to get a promotion? He goes, yeah, of course it's possible. If they say it's impossible, then okay, it's over. Look for somewhere else to work or whatever. But okay, great. Now, can we sit down and can we put together a game plan? Can we just sit down and can we meet, let's say, every 2 weeks, just for a few minutes, just to make sure? Because at the end of every luge run, we pick up the walkie-talkie because we got to debrief, right? And coach tells you how you messed up and how you can make it better next time. And so it's feedback. And so can we just meet every 2 weeks and just to make sure that I'm on track? And just by doing that, you're not bragging about yourself, but every manager would absolutely kill for somebody that does that, right? And now they may not even have been considering you, but you're in the short list because he or she's thinking, man, he wants it and he's willing to work for it. And he's got a plan. He got character, man, you're in the short list. And now you got to do the work, right? And you do the work. And if you're in sales, let's say you're in sales or whatever. When I sold copiers, I used to sell copying machines in Houston. And I've knocked on every door of every floor of every building in downtown Houston several times, okay? And Mary, she was always a salesperson of the month. So I would take Mary out for coffee and I'd learn from her, right? Successful people like to talk about success. The guys that were whining and complaining up at the water cooler, man, you stay away from them. They'll mess up your brain, right? Because they're not going to be around very long. And the stuff they're saying, it's just going to mess you up. Just hang around Mary. Find your Mary. And then when you're the coach or the boss, right? The manager. So our manager, her name was Linda Shepard when I sold copiers. And she knew that we wouldn't be interested in, we wouldn't get excited about, okay, your quota this month is so many dollars sold. But she knew that I wanted to go to the Olympics, and Bob, he wanted to buy a Corvette, and Mary, she was into cruises. And so she would bring Mary all these brochures of cruises. Look, I just found another one. I heard this one, the top one. Look, you got to check that out. Man, let's put together a plan so we can get that done for you, okay? And Bob, she'd go to the Corvette dealership and get a bunch of brochures. Hey, what are you doing for lunch? Nothing. Let's go test drive one. Test drive one. Ah, man, he's going to work his tail off for that. And he loves you because you care about them individually as people, because everybody has a different goal, a different button.
Yeah. I love your point about how success likes to talk about success, because that's something that, that takes the fear away from approaching successful people, because it's true. They love to talk about success. You've talked a lot about your successes in the books that you've written. So tell us best ways to find the books, best ways to connect with you for speaking opportunities as well.
Sure. I'll email you my favorite personal development and leadership book list, and you can do whatever you want with it. And so that's the easiest way to do it. But one book leads to another and another one. You read one that was written last year, and they'll reference somebody from 30 years ago. And you read that book, and he references somebody from 100 years ago. And you keep going down that rabbit hole, you always end up in the same place, Proverbs. Right?
Yeah.
It's true. You always end up there. But so the principles don't change. So you just get good at them and consistently and persistently follow them, not just know them. You got to do the work.
I love that. Well done. So what is the best way to learn more about your work, Ruben?
Oh, the easiest way. How about olympicmotivation.com? olympicmotivation.com. That's an easier one to remember. I got about 20 of them, but
I like that. We're recording this right now during the Olympics, but you got to give us a sneak peek. You're moving to Utah, you mentioned closer to Park City. Olympics, what will it be? 2034? Is that what you're, or
No,
2030? Obviously,
2030,
yeah.
the Olympics will be in France, in the French Alps. And then 2034 is in Park. And boy, Salt Lake was the best one by far. They treated us so nice. It was awesome. But the track there, it's a fast track. And I'm friends with all the coaches. So I'll be able to get a lot more runs in, get those reps in. And you still have to go to Europe and everywhere else. But having a track, I've never lived close to a track. And so that's going to help big time.
We'll be watching, and
Yes,
hopefully
we
we'll
will
see
be.
you on that luge
Yeah,
track.
yeah.
And,
If I make that one, that'll be 6 different decades. It'll be the 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010, and 20 years later, 2030.
unbelievable. And that'll motivate us.
Maybe I can get Depend Diapers to sponsor me. I don't know. I'm older than the coaches now, but I've taken all these long breaks, so my body's not broken down, but my mental is stronger because I keep reading the books and listening to the audios. And so that's key, guys. It really is the key.
Yeah.
Wow. We're inspired by you. We can't thank you enough for sharing your insights today on the Limitless Leadership Lounge. And we'll be watching in 4 years from now, Ruben. We'll be watching.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Y'all take care. Make it an Olympic day.